What's going on, my broskiis? My name is Toadski, back again, here to bring you guys yet another One Piece Treasure Cruise video, and finally, bring you guys a dedicated video for the Infinitum C difficulty of the latest release of Co-op Quest. Now, Co-op Quest is a very interesting game mode, and I've seen a lot of comments in my video that I uploaded initially. Most people have like the same consensus that there just isn't enough information for us to build solid teams against this content. And even if you go and try and build a room and play with a random person, like, yeah, even if you build really good teams, no matter what, you can just come up against really bad RNG. You know, random bosses will appear, just ones that you can't prepare for, and then you just end up losing. So it is a little bit RNG at the moment, it feels like. You know, building good teams and, you know, trying to get through the content with your partner and using the right specials at the right time, it really comes down to your understanding of the characters in the game, because you want to try and build a team that can kind of cover all bases in a lot of different ways, and then you kind of want your teammate to do a very similar thing. And, you know, if you come up against, like in this specific example, you see that the Alvida character puts up a rainbow shield for 1 turn, so you want to try and have some type of effect that can remove 1 turn of rainbow shield in some way. And whether you can't do it, maybe your friend can, and you can go ahead and skip it, pass it over to them, and that's one way that you can kind of get around it. So this clip that you are seeing is Karissa and I using a DEX, it's a DEX shooter or a DEX free spirit focused team to try and actually get through this content whilst completing the mission, because there are missions that are dedicated to the Infinitum C where we're completing the DEX mission, where you got to build DEX shooter or a DEX free spirit focused team. So every character in this team is either DEX shooter or DEX free spirit. There's also one for Psy cerebral, Psy slasher, and then there's one for int fighter, int powerhouse. So I'll hopefully bring you guys dedicated videos for those ones in particular over the next couple of days. But definitely feels like the int and dex one feel kind of tricky. I feel like Psy might be the easiest one to build for. Psy are just incredibly strong. Dex is a little finicky because if you come up against a strength boss, you just do inherent less damage against it. But I will say, Ace and Yamato captains are phenomenal. The burn switch effect, the chain boundary switch effect, all very useful in this content, because there are some mini bosses that can appear that give you chain reductions or chain attack down, and having that switch effect to get a chain boundary every turn is very good. And there are some bosses that have resilience, so being able to inflict ignite on them so that at the end of the turn you can immediately kill them through that resilience is very key. Plus having the captain ability to resist 10 turns of bind, 10 turns of special bind, very good. And of course they got a good special as well. And then, as for the rest of the crewmates, like Corazon, full border matching slots and gets rid of a bunch of utility and healing. We have Capone Crew on my side. Capone Crew is really nice because he removes Threshold and Rainbow Shield, who's just basically kind of there for that. Switch effect to reduce some damage that you take, which is also kind of nice. Robert and Koala, very good unit as well. Their switch effect, every time you switch, it removes 1 turn of enemy's Threshold, and their super switch removes 3 turns of Threshold. So having a utility that you can activate every single turn sometimes is really good. For example, if the enemy puts up like 2 turns of Threshold, and you both have Robin Koala, one person can switch with Robin Koala, and then just skip it over to the next person, and that person can then switch and remove all of the debuffs. So this is something you do have to keep in mind when you are playing this game mode. When you are playing Co-op Quest, abusing the skip function is something you need to take note of, because if there are a bunch of debuffs, you can use all of your specials to remove debuffs and then immediately skip it. The enemy doesn't perform an action. It just allows your friend, your partner, to perform straight after you without the enemy doing anything, and then they can use their specials to remove gimmicks as well. However, do take note that if you activate the skip feature, you cannot activate it 2 turns in a row. So you can skip once, but then on your next turn, you have to perform an attack in some way. But it just means that on the turn after that, you can then skip again. So taking full functionality of that skip feature is going to be useful and probably very key moving forward into the future. You're seeing in this example here versus this Big Mom, she has that resilience, which is very frustrating to get through. But luckily, you know, Ace Yamato with that switch effect, being able to inflict the ignite status, so when you get her down to 1 HP, you can immediately kill her. Now, the other reason why Infinitum C is such an annoying game mode is that when you reach the final boss stage, there are 10 different variations. Yes, you heard that correctly. 10 different variations, 1 for each of the Straw Hats. Now, Karissa and I got through, like, to the boss stage, like, 3 or 4 separate times, and this was the one that was the winning run. We ended up winning against Usopp. Usopp definitely felt like the easiest of the bosses that we had encountered thus far. We encountered Frankie a couple of times. Frankie is going to be really tricky to get through. Zoro looks really tricky to get through. Nami, I think, has some potential to get through. I don't think she's going to be too tricky. I haven't encountered all of them, but just from initial inspection, Frankie seems really annoying. Zoro seems really annoying. But Usopp, I think, is kind of manageable. So as we reach the boss stage here, the big thing about Usopp is that he doesn't actually do a whole lot. He does have damage limiter, which is a little frustrating, but of course you've got, you yourself doing burst damage, you've got your friend doing burst damage as well. You do see he has like 10 turns of Rainbow Shield, and this is where you and your friend can partner up your effects together, where we both Karissa and I are both using Sanji, the effect to remove a bunch of Rainbow Shield on my opponent's side of the field, and then eventually when it passes back over to me, I can go ahead and use Sanji to remove the rest of the Rainbow Shield. So it's not like you need a character to remove 10 turns of Rainbow Shield. If you and your partner are able to cooperate, you can remove all of the effects with your specials together. And of course, with the effect of Usopp, he says that he has like 3 turns before he does anything bad, but we're able to use these effects in our favor to do a bunch of damage to the opponent, skip back over to us, remove gimmicks, and then go ahead and get that dub. And you do see that this is my first turn on Usopp, so even though my partner has had 1 turn on Usopp, this is my first turn on the final stage, so any supports that activate on the final stage, they might actually take a full turn to activate because, it requires your opponent to activate their effects first, then it comes back to you, and then your supports that trigger on the final stage will finally activate. So it's a bit of a weird thing that even though it activates on final stage, it doesn't actually occur until you reach the final stage to actually play it. So that can be used in your favor in certain ways. Like if the enemy performs certain gimmicks on the 2nd turn of the final stage, and you've got a support that can activate to remove certain effects, you can really abuse that in your kind of way. So like hypothetically, if you put Threshold on the enemy side of the field on the 2nd turn, that VV support that procced on Sanji would remove it, even though it would normally activate at the start. So that's really, really cool ways to go about it. So here you go. I'm gonna go and do some damage to my opponent here. I am a little cautious on using that Rush Sugo special of Sanji because that is going to reduce my HP by a pretty significant portion, which means that I might not be able to tank hits from Usopp. So I was a little cautious and ended up not going for that burst skill, the Rush skill. I wanted to try and conserve as much HP as possible, using Corazon to remove, or not to really remove anything, but to give us matching slots. The final tap of Ace and Yamato doing pretty good damage despite not having type advantage, and the damage limiter on Usopp is allowing him to tank. But I know that Karissa can come in here, give it back to me, and I can super swap into Ace, which will inflict the ignite status on Usopp, which means that when we go for the kill, we can actually get the win against Usopp. So having some way to get through resilience might actually be important, and Ace Yamato are a really good character at enabling that. But that's going to wrap it up for me, guys. Hopefully you enjoyed this video. I'm wishing you guys the best of luck with Infinitum C, because there just isn't really a flat, definitive way of beating this content. It just straight up feels like RNG at this point. But let me know your thoughts and opinions about it down below in the comment section. Hope you enjoyed it, and if you did, make sure to go ahead and leave a like. And if you want to stay up to date with all the content I post, including more One Piece Treasure Cruise content, make sure to hit the subscribe button down below. On that, guys, I'll see you guys within the next video.